think that we're all on an even playing field now. Forget lights, forget that you're out there. There's the sun. Now let's see what you can do. So, and it's very hard, because everything can look washed out, and things can be so harsh with the sun and etc. I don't, you know what I'm saying. So let me pick a piece real quick. The first one got my attention right off the bat, which now I'm remembering what you said, is that you want to, you really want to grab them right from the first shot. And now I see what you're talking about, because there it is again. That first shot just got me.
Right.
Are you with me? It's the lady walking in the field with the trees all around her and the forest kind of in the background.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what were you in this shot focused on that made you say, okay, this is going to be a good shot? What time of day is it? And how are you angling yourself with the sun, and why? I can go on, but I'm just going to let you take over.
Is this shot with the billowing material into the sun?
Exactly it's the shot of a lady. It looks like she might be on a cell phone, and she's walking through the grass.
I know that.
Yeah,
okay.
Tree to the left.
Okay, so for exterior shooting, the most important thing to do is the time of day you shoot. It's absolutely critical. I never want to shoot midday. There's nothing you can do. Everything's flat. You can't control the direction of the sun. You have no undulating light. You can't juxtapose someone against a dark background. You can't get any backlight.
Oh, time out. Undulating light, what is that?
So it's basically, if you have, just say a textured wall, and you lit the wall from the side, you would get light and shadows, because you would have texture on the wall.
Okay.
If you had an old person with wrinkles, a lot of wrinkles, if you wanted to see the wrinkles, the best thing would be to light from the side.
Right.
Because then the wrinkles that stand out would be lit, but the wrinkles you don't see would be shadowed.
Okay.
Okay. If you lit them from the front,
right,
you'd fill up all the wrinkles with light, and you wouldn't see shadows in the wrinkles. You wouldn't see it. You wouldn't see the texture of the face as much as if you lit it from the side. So what it is it's juxtapositioning of light so that you can see the crevices. It's like the desert. If you're in the desert, late in the evening when the sun's going down, you can see lots of contrast. You can see beautiful light, and you can see darkness. So the shadows give you a sense of the texture of the land. When you're in the desert at midday and the sun's right above, you don't really see the texture, the character of the sand and the dunes, etc., etc.
So okay, but that's exactly my. You want to tell me that all the beautiful stuff I see, in Hollywood outdoors is not during the day, is not in the midday. They're only shooting in the morning, and that can't be. I mean, you know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, you can shoot at any time of the day. But when you do a wide shot, you can't control the sun. You can't make the sun do what you want to do. The sun does what it does. So if you shooting a big sequence of people on horses, and you got 1,000 horses, and you shoot it at midday, you literally, if you cut into a close-up, if you don't control it, you're going to have pools under the eyes. The background's going to be as bright as the foreground. You can't separate the tones of the horses from the tones of the background. If the background, for example, was brown and the horses are brown, you got the same tonal value. If it was backlit, you could have the horses having an edge around them. If it was side-lit, it's the same thing. So the thing is, there's certain things you can control. You can control lighting when you're inside, but when you're outside, you got the sun, and you got to work with it.
Okay, so what did you do here on this shot with the lady walking on this grass, and the trees are out there?
So that's just early morning. Sun's coming through the trees, and you're good to go. There's nothing else you need to do. It's just natural, and it's just shot at the perfect time of the day.
And
your exposure, around and I went to the other side of that hill, and I shot in the other direction. You'd have front light on her, which is fine, but then the light on her would be at the same intensity as the background. So you might be distracted more by the background than by her. Like this, when you backlight things, it softens things, it desaturates your tones a little, it gives her an edge, so she's separated from the background, she's outlined. So the most important thing you can do exterior is choose the right time of the day to shoot it. You make the sun your friend. Don't try and fight the sun.
Now, there's a few choices here that I see you've made, and I'm curious about them. Like number one, you could have probably exposed. I'm not sure what the terminology is, but even lowered your exposure even more to get these trees that are way out in the background, so that we could see them a little better, and then she would be really silhouetted.
Yes.
But you didn't decide to do that, so I'm guessing because you didn't want her to be completely silhouetted. That would be my guess. That wasn't what you wanted. Otherwise,
I think if you want someone completely silhouette, you need to juxtapose them against a background that they stand out. So if someone's in a desert and the desert's quite white or it's got a certain bright tone to it, it's nice to silhouette something because you're going to see them juxtaposed nicely against them, against that. If you've got someone that's got trees and things like that, if you silhouette her, as soon as she goes past a tree branch, you might not see her. So, there's no hard and fast rules.
Right.
But for sure, the wider you get, the more you can get away with silhouetting someone versus when you're in a close-up. If you silhouette someone, there's got to be a reason. Otherwise, people are going to say, why can't I see the expressions? So it's all subjective.
Yeah.
And exposure there's no right. People always think exposure, this is the way to expose. There's no right and wrong to exposure. There's your interpretation of what's correct for exposure.
It's all about what you're trying to say, what you're trying to,
Yes.
part of the context and part of the story. I'm understanding. Okay, there's a few elements here that I think the average person that's still learning would go it would just go right over their head, and they would miss it. And maybe you could explain to me what's going on here. There's this tree to the right on the foreground. I think the average person would not have put that tree in the foreground, which is exactly why your shots are your shots and the average person's is the average person's. and the other thing is that the tree to her left is kind of like, she's in a frame right now. You framed her within the frame. And then one last thing is the grass, and I'm just mentioning these points, and I want you to then talk about why it works. Is the grass, the hill that she's on? It ends at some point, but it doesn't end in the middle of the screen, and it doesn't end all the way at the bottom. It's kind of, I think it's ending basically on that lower third line, right?
Yes.
So these are all pieces. I mean, go ahead, tell me, am I right? Are these things that are making this what makes it an engaging shot?
Yeah, I think as a cameraman, every single shot you got to say, why am I doing this? It's not just about putting the camera in a specific place. I might put a camera somewhere, and then I might move it 3 inches to the left, and then go higher 2 inches because I'm just searching for the magical. To think that just shooting from anywhere you're going to get the same shot is not true. Just by raising the camera up, lowering it, you're changing the perspective of how you see the world. So
you guys
it's
hear
hard
that?
to say exactly why I did things, but I'm always looking at composition and all these aspects to try and tell. For example, if you're shooting a tall building, often someone who is not aware of composition or some of these tricks might just shoot a building and try and always see the top of the building. Sometimes if a building goes to the 50th floor, if you frame it up to the 48th floor and never see the top, your audience might assume the building's got another 20 levels, and that might make it a more powerful story. So these are things you want to take into consideration. What you show and what you don't show have impact in terms of storytelling.
So would it be right for me to ask, why is the tree on the right of this shot, why is it a good thing? Why did you decide to put that, or it's just a feeling?
It's more feeling, because sometimes, depends. If you got an English audience, the English audience reads left to right. So they naturally watch a movie left to right. They're always scanning left to right. That's their instincts.
Interesting.
So often, if you put a tree on the right, it's not necessarily always good compositionally, because you're going to scan left to right, and then a tree just like locks you from keep moving. Often you put something strong on the left-hand side, then people will see that, but then they'll move on and go to a person's face. So you got to, being aware of all these rules, you can see when it's relevant, when it won't really when it helps your story, when it doesn't. For example, when people used to make cowboys and Indian movies, they'd often have the bad guys coming from the right because you least expect that.
Ah,
Because you're always scanning from your left first
interesting.
in terms of American cinema. So if you wanted to frighten someone, you often see the cowboys riding to the left and the Indians riding from the right. These were
Yeah.
tricks that people used to say, because people would that you get a bigger fright if someone jumped into the screen from the right than on the left, for audience who's scanning left to right. That's how they read. So just being aware of all these things. Obviously in Israel it might work the reverse because people are reading right to left.
You're right,
But
right.
just being aware of these subconsciously can help you make things more scary. If you're going to do a story and you want someone to jump into frame and scare the audience, taking this into consideration, does it make a difference coming from the left or the right? Absolutely. On the subconscious level, one will help the audience not see what you had planned and scare them even more. So these are kind of things I'm taking into consideration. And sometimes I'll ignore them if I find a tree on the right. It's just a beautiful tree and I think it's great. And I
Yeah.
think I'd rather have it than not. I might just use it. So it's knowing these rules, breaking these rules, using them, not using them, and there's no right or wrong. It's just the way I see the world.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious how much equipment you need to like really control outdoor light. I'm looking at the redheaded girl with her hand up to her lips in 12 seconds in, and she's just lit so perfectly. I mean,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
man, her eyes are just and I don't really see the reflect. I don't see that little catch light in the eye
Yeah.
that's giving away that something is. What's going on here? Where's the light coming from, and what's going on? And go ahead.
That's God's light. You can't
That's God's
recreate
light.
that. That's what you call magic light. The sun's going down 5 minutes before the sun sets on the ocean, so you get just a bit of a harsh light coming in, but it's going. As the sun gets lower to the atmosphere, lower to the horizon, it goes through more atmosphere. So it's like diffusion. So as it gets lower and lower, you can actually start using frontal light on a face and get beautiful quality light because it's going through so much atmosphere. So that was just seeing beautiful light on someone's foot. We're basically shooting a magician, and we have an audience, and we've got to get the reactions, and all of a sudden you just observe beautiful light falling on someone who's reacting, and you say, okay, we've got to get this shot now. You just do that shot first, and then you go to the other shot. So that's just taking advantage of God's gifts, When
Right.
that kind of light you can't recreate.
Now, okay. So you see the lights where you want and everything. Now, what are you directing to make it happen? Are you telling her, okay, I need you a little bit more this way? I see that you have her. It's kind of coming off on the side so that you get a nice little fall off, shadows on her right cheek. That's something I'm noticing. But what are some of the things that you teach the people out there that are like, okay, so got this beautiful hour of the day, and here she is. She's right in front of you. You got this green grass. Well, I'm sure it didn't just happen. You must have had to manipulate it a little bit.
Well, the best way to cheat it is where your camera is, because someone's going to be looking just past the camera. So if I want to adjust the angle of their head, I'll just move my camera to where I want them to observe things from. So she's actually watching a magician show. So I might move the camera and say, okay, just pretend the magician is just to the right of my hand and give her an eye line. And if there's something distracting behind her, I might say, just move 3 feet to your left. Perfect, we got it, let's go. So it's just a matter of simple things like that,
yeah,
and you're ready to go.
Very similar to in the pawn shop, moving the things a little bit here, a little bit there, and that's how it is. And I think that's this is like the biggest takeaway today, and something that it took me a while to get is you see her and there she is, and she's looking one way. Doesn't mean you have to shoot her right where she's looking right at that moment. Move the camera around until you find that right light that you want. And then tell her, okay, now look over here. So move her around a little bit, and that could take just a couple seconds, and that's the difference between getting the shot and not.
And someone who's less experienced would have come on and felt instinctually that it's wrong. She's got to look where the magician was actually doing his piece. I would say no. They would see me making her look another 10 feet to the right to where the magician wasn't, and they would think, oh, I can understand what he's doing. I never thought of that. It just felt like it wouldn't work.
Right.
But it does work.
Okay, I have 2 final things. Wow, hour and 10. We're crazy. 2 final things. So this is a piece that I did in the middle of the desert, all by myself, basically, and it took about 8 hours. It was from from I don't know 10 in the morning or something until basically sunset.
Yes.
So 5 6. So I would just like to you know, from somebody at your level to maybe pick apart one shot or two and say, you know, I would like to see how a shot could be improved. I mean, I don't mind hearing compliments, but
So how did you get this like smooth look? Did you do some technique in post? This like
there's
look.
probably a little bit of what is it that makes it diffusion? A little bit of diffusion.
Did you do that in post?
Yeah. It's in post. Definitely not in camera. Didn't do it in
Okay.
camera.
So if you
Yeah.
look at the first shot, let me see if this is the first shot. Yeah, let me just start.
Yeah, with the guy with the blue eyes and the hat.
Yeah. Okay, so it's nice. You put a lot of fill in his face, so you filled him up. But now if you look, can you see that the top light is hitting his nose?
Say it again. The what?
Can you see the sun? The sun.
The
You
sun.
see the sunlight is hitting his nose.
The front tip of his nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I see it.
So if you shoot that in the early morning, you don't get that. When the light, I can tell that you shot those between 11:30 and 2:30 because the light's very high.
Yeah.
So the fact that you probably, you know, his cap's blocking, he's probably got a lot of shadow underneath his cap, and you probably bounced a lot of light into his face.
Actually, I didn't do any bounce here, but it could be that the floor is giving me the bounce, right?
Okay, so the floor, you're in the desert, so that's bouncing all that light back.
Yeah.
So that makes it nice, it makes it soft. But if you shot that early in the morning, you'd be able to get contrast. You'd be able to, wouldn't get, because having light on top of a nose is classically not something that someone in the 40s would do. People don't even know about that, but people, you know, when you're shooting like doing beauty lighting, you would never have like a backlight being too far around that it hits the nose, because then it's unflattering. It's not very noticeable on your shot because there's a lot of light everywhere, so it's hard to get contrast or things like that. If this was shot, for example, on green grass, there wouldn't be so much light bouncing back up into his face. Then you would see it more noticeably, like a lot of bright light on his nose. So that's one of the reasons I never shoot midday portraits or anything like that, for that reason, because I don't want light hitting a nose.
So I mean, but surely you have no choice. I mean, especially if you have a shoot that you have lots and lots of shots to do. What are you going to tell them? Sorry, we have a 2-hour window, an hour window in the morning, an hour window in the afternoon. That's our day.
No, I would just choose when I'm going to do close-ups. I would say, can't we schedule it so I'm doing the close-ups early in the morning, or big wide shots early in the morning, and midday I would be working inside the barracks or under the tanks, so I would just schedule it so I'm doing the right shots at the right time of the day. It's not always possible, but that's what I try and do, so that I'm taking advantage of where I want the light. Just like I'm controlling the light interior, I want to control it even when it's God's light, the sun.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, it's a very nice shot because there's the light's everywhere. It's very nice and soft. But I prefer to have my light where I don't have light hitting the nose. You know, so I'm just telling you the way I see things.
Yeah. No, I would love to hear if there was any different way besides the light. What about framing and things like that? What everything that you would have done different?
Framing's perfect. It's great composition, but it's you know, there's no. Now, you know, you can see that how the background is as illuminated as his face.
Yes.
So what helps is the background's out of focus. But I'm saying if it was backlit because the sun was low, you would have shadows on the ground, and then all of a sudden you'd have exposure. You'd be able to see the background more. That's what I'm saying. When you shoot at midday, you've got the same tones on his face as the background. That's why I don't try and shoot exterior midday.
Yeah.
You'll look at my work. You'll never see me shooting in harsh light when I'm shooting. I'm shooting in harsh light, but when the sun's where I want it.
So what can you tell people to do when that is the situation? Because I think for the lower...
What I would do is I'd have an 8x8 scrim above him. So I would control all the top light above him, and then I would take negative, like black light, black, what would you call it?
A reflector? Black reflector?
Yeah, but it's like material. Here they call it like blackout. It's like 8x8. Instead of having bounce, you have just, it's black. It's black. It's like and I'd put it on the side of his face, and it takes light away. It bounces dark light into his face. So all of a sudden, I've got subtractive light, and I've created
bouncing dark light.
So,
wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you try and get contrast on someone's face. Not many people know how to do it. Alan Davio, who shot E.T., he was one of the only cameramen who really created contrast outside in bright sunlight. And he used to use a lot of negative fill. So you take big 8x8s or 12x12s of black material on a frame, and he'd put it on the side right next to your actor's face. And all of a sudden, then the one side's illuminated and the other side starts going towards a more shadow, and you have like a good tonal range in the face. You don't have everything exposed equally.
So that black thing that you're talking about, the sun is hitting it?
No, the sun's not. It's basically to stop all this bounce light bouncing into his face. So that anything that's reflected into his face is black. So
but
it just makes more shadow.
You have this scrim above him. Isn't that putting him right now in shadow? There's no light hitting his face. I mean, there's still light that's getting through it, right?
Yeah, but you could even put black above him. So I often would scrim him with black from above and black from the side, and then I just have open, soft light coming in from the side, and then all of a sudden it creates almost like soft window light in a very harsh environment. Wow. But that takes a lot of technique. Now you need crew. You need someone to put an 8x8 above him, an 8x8 by side, just for one shot, which if you did at the right time of the day, you could have achieved. But I often use, like in a close-up like this, it's very easy to have taken an 8x8 piece of black material and put it on a frame and walked it to just out of frame, 2 feet away from the frame, and then all of a sudden you're going to get contrast. The side that the black's coming from is going to go shadowy, and the other side's going to have illumination, and you're creating contrast without any lights.
You're saying I could have done that on this shot?
Yeah, you could have.
Wow. So
if you wanted to. I'm not saying that it's right. That's how I would have done it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Are you kidding? I mean, who doesn't want it to have that? You don't want everything to be perfectly, everything evenly lit exactly. That doesn't suck you in.
Yeah. So that's what I would have done. This time of the day, I would have put black from the top so that I'd kill all the light coming onto his nose, and black from the side, and then I would have had the soft bounce light coming off the ground, and a bit from the side of him coming from one side.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's great. Wow. Well, Daron, I think everybody who's watching, I don't know if anybody stuck around for an hour and 20-some minutes, but if they didn't, they missed out. Especially there was a ton of tips right there at the end, and I'm glad we did this. And we're gonna do it again, and we'll pick a specific topic and get into it, because I think you just covered basically everything. There's just so much, and I want to know more, but we can't go on forever. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Nice chatting to you.
And yeah, we'll do it again soon.
Okay, well, have a great week, and we'll chat soon.
Okay, thanks, Daron.
Bye.